I'm excited to have this conversation because we're covering a topic that I'm actually pretty interested in, which is how can someone stand out and be exceptional at work? Like what makes an employee exceptional? I feel like it's a strong word to have, and it's something that a lot of people want to be.
Yeah, yeah, for sure.
So I think I want to start off with three characteristics I've seen you mention quite a few times when it comes to reviews, and I believe it's common sense, problem solving ability, and a drive to help and to build. That's correct.
Yes, yes, that's right.
There
You
you
have been
go.
listening well. So, so these are some of the abilities that I think really help an individual to stand out and to be that truly exceptional contributor to the team. Common sense is very, very hard to teach, and it's something that if you don't have it, it can be very difficult to get there. People can and do, but it's really that sense of I understand what to do in an uncertain situation. I can make a decision that is logical, that is rational, and that when looking back on this in the future, everyone will say, that was probably the right thing to do. Or among difficult decisions, that one made a lot of sense. I can see what that individual was thinking. Um, you know, a lot of times you find folks who struggle with this, where they may be following sort of the letter of what was asked, but not at all the spirit of what was asked. I remember at a past job, it was one of the first times I was ever a manager, and I had asked one of the people on my team. I said, "Listen, I need to have this meeting with the client, so we got to get that meeting set up. Can you set up that meeting?" And this individual was like, "Yeah, absolutely, absolutely." Set up a meeting to meet directly one-on-one with that person without me there, and had no idea what the meeting was about. And so then I get this call and they're like, "Yeah, Aaron, why are we meeting? Why did you want us to meet?" And I'm like, "No, I didn't want you to just meet without me." So, there's a level of common sense in all things that you want to really make sure that somebody has. Two, you mentioned the problem solving ability.
Mhm.
And that's something that is also relatively difficult to teach. And there's certainly a degree of inherent intelligence that is associated with problem solving ability, especially for a firm like ours at Plan A, where we focus so much on fixing things or creating things. We really need to have individuals who are able to look at a challenge, often a challenge that our clients can't figure out, and come up with really creative, insightful ways to solve that challenge, to fix that problem. And it is the kind of thing that some people enjoy doing. Some people love puzzles. Some people don't love puzzles.
Mhm.
And if you are a problem solver, if you're the kind of individual that is driven to figure something out, that helps a lot. And as a really great characteristic for an employee, somebody who wants to figure things out, who wants to make things better. And then that final one, that drive to help others and to build things, is one that is maybe the hardest of all to teach,
Mhm.
because it's really goes to the idea that we want people on the team who feel an inherent motivating drive and a true force to feel like they want to help others, to be kind to others, to make things better that are not currently
Yeah.
going well, and also to create and to develop a series of really exciting, cool new solutions to whatever is in front of them. And the reason I make that more specific, and I don't just say drive. Drive is certainly important. We want people who are driven to kind of go the extra mile, of course, but somebody who's just going the extra mile to be self-serving is not going to necessarily always be the best employee. You want somebody who's driven to really help the group, to help the clients, to help their colleagues. Yeah, those things are I suppose all fairly difficult to teach, but those inherent characteristics can make a really, really big difference and are often commonly shared ingredients that a lot of our successful staff exhibit.
How does one communicate properly? What are the do's and don'ts of communicating?
Well, I think this one is interesting because I can give the kind of plan A answer here, or I can give the more general answer. And I guess the more general answer for everybody checking this out would be that this is somewhat dependent on your organization. You know, some organizations have a culture of being very open and honest and encouraging questioning. That's what we have at Plan A. I really like when our staff is really like having a, you know, very honest dialogue with each other and with our clients. And that's what helps us to build and create and get better. Some organizations are more conservative though. And I think for especially new employees into an organization, they have to sort of understand the cultural dynamics a little bit. You know, because sometimes that isn't welcome or looked upon very favorably. Yeah. Nonetheless, I think some of the characteristics of really good communication are people who take the extra time when writing an email, when sending a message on Slack or Teams or whatever, or when having a dialogue with another individual. They are not only respectful, they are professional, but they are also clear. I think one of the things a lot of people struggle with in any kind of group dynamic, but particularly in work group dynamics, is people will just sort of talk and talk and talk and talk and talk. And they don't exactly know what they want from the other person or from the group. And so you have the audience who's kind of listening and trying to determine like, okay, what do they mean? What do they want? What are they struggling with? And you have a lot of times like two ships passing in the night where one person thinks they're saying one thing and the other person thinks they're saying something else. And
the interpretation.
Absolutely. And so I really encourage, for instance, our team members to, when writing emails, for instance, be very clear up front. This is what I am writing the email about. And then get into the details. I need the following from you. 1, 2, 3, I need this by this date. Is that possible? Do you see any obstacles? End of story. Yeah. Something that is crystal clear, especially since people are reading emails so darn fast these days. Often they're in line at the grocery store and going through their phone as they're looking at it.
Straight to the point.
Yes. And so very, very important to be clear in your communications and respectful. You know, I think one of the things that's also a challenge is in the work environment, tempers can flare up. You know, you have things from that people have been working on for a long time, and then a new party gets brought in and they don't know what's going on. They don't know the backstory, and somebody else is insulted, and you've got all these internal office politics at a lot of organizations, which is frustrating, but it happens. And so very important if you're writing sort of a furious email to make certain that you take a moment, maybe take a couple hours before sending that to reread that or share it even if it's appropriate with somebody else at the company who might be able to give you another perspective on that. And then also just making darn sure that you spell check, you grammar check emails. Yeah, it's such a pet peeve of mine how many folks will just write these, you know, write emails and messages that have absolutely terrible grammar and make no sense and leave everyone confused. So I think those also can really help to make an employee truly exceptional.
Mm-hmm. And I think touching on that, and I guess as well on the point of having a drive to help and build, I think if you really paying attention to everything you're writing in your email and paying attention to what other people are doing and seeing how you want to help and how you can help, I think that takes an element of being proactive. And I feel like being proactive is a great thing, but is there a limit to it? Is there such thing as being too proactive?
Yeah, that's a good question. I mean, I think one of the things, especially for younger employees or more timid staff members, they feel there's this kind of feeling that like if I am asked to do something, I will do it. And if I do a good job of it, I will be noticed and thus promoted. And, that I think that is very much how the world worked back in like the 50s and, and 60s. Now it's really important to have people who raise their hand and say like, look, I am actually only being utilized like 60% of the time. I got more time. Let me help in more areas.
Yeah.
Or I notice there's an issue here. I think we can do a better job of this, obviously delivering that message in a respectful way. But, one of the things that really makes an employee not just sort of good, meeting expectations, but exceeding expectations are those employees who are going and actually seeing that and raising their hand and pointing things out. Ultimately, most good supervisors who are not like the kind of jerks who are like, I want everybody just listening to me, and if you don't, then you're fired, that type of thing. Most good managers are looking for people who are going to be proactively finding problems and solving those problems. Like the example that's always used is somebody who's, walking through the hotel, if they're a hotel employee and they see trash on the ground and they pick up the darn trash and they throw it away. They don't just keep walking, right? And you want that kind of analogy happening at wherever you are. If you're working
every part,
yeah, exactly. Like, and I see that there's an error or a bug in the code. I got to raise my hand. I got to try to fix it or tell people. You don't want you want people who are proactive enough to be like, hey, not my problem. I'm not going to deal with it. You want everyone thinking about how to help in every way they can.
Yeah.
But to your question, yeah, I mean, you don't see it too often, actually. It's hard to be too proactive, but every now and then there's somebody who crosses the line and almost becomes a little bit of a busybody sort of thing, like trying to like tell on everybody and say everything is wrong and, being hypercritical of things that don't matter too much. So you can cross into that world. But it doesn't happen too often. Usually we encourage people to be more proactive rather than less.
And then a $1 million question, a question that's asked all the time, which is kind of ironic, but is there such thing as a dumb question? Are there bad questions? Are there good questions? What are like the most helpful questions to make someone stand out?
So I think there's a very different attitude towards questions for young employees or employees who are brand new to the position versus the folks who are really established.
Okay.
You have this really wonderful window, and I think the first, say, 90 days on the job, where you should be asking every darn question you can. And that's a great time to get familiar, to say like, hey, dumb question. I have no idea. You use this acronym. What does that mean? And you should be doing that. Don't just kind of nod your head and pretend you know what's going on, because
they don't bite you in the butt later.
Yes, absolutely. Because then they're like, oh, Yusuf knows what XYZ is. So now I'm going to talk about the next level. And you're like, oh God, this is getting worse and worse and worse. It's like, trying to get to calculus when you haven't learned addition yet, and you're just pretending that you know addition. And so, not enough people ask questions, and you absolutely should. In fact, one of the things I often did when I started in a new job was sit down, and I would go and ask people to lunch or ask people to get coffee with me, when I first joined. And I would say, hey, can we, or in a remote environment, you can just say, hey, can I just grab like 30 minutes with you on Zoom?
Hop on a call. Yeah,
absolutely. And then just ask them questions about, their experience at the job, the things that they've done, the mistakes they've made that they wish they hadn't, any advice they have for you. And that's really, really great. And you should absolutely do that. I think where it gets challenging is now and then you have the folks who are not on the road to being an exceptional employee, where they will ask questions that they've already asked, often, more than once. And that can be really frustrating for the other members of the team, because they're like, why is Yusuf asking this for the third freaking time? And he's not taking any notes. He's going to forget again. Why are we bothering to show this guy? Like, that's where like people start to feel like you're wasting their time.
Yeah.
Similarly, for more seasoned employees, we
You're
see this.
asking questions that are like for beginners or people who are new to the job, right?
Yes,
Yeah.
yes. And this can be difficult because sometimes you have a more seasoned employee who maybe knows a lot about the industry, but doesn't know a lot about that job. And so now, they need to ask those questions to learn about the job, and pair that with their deep industry knowledge.
Yeah.
And so that's a delicate balance to walk for them. But certainly I'm a big believer in questions. I think especially early on, those are critical. And then in a professional services organization like Plan A, where our clients are coming to us with these crazy, messy situations and problems, we have to be these detectives who are also asking a million questions to figure out, like, all right, why is this thing broken? Why is this not doing what you wanted it to do? And what exactly do you want us to build and create? And so, we love questions, and those are great in those client interactions.
It's a proper response. If someone asks you, hey, can you do this? And you're not sure.
Just be honest. Say, I don't know.
Mm.
I had a boss, one of my really great bosses, actually, who is now a good friend of mine, who said to me once, Aron, your lies have puppies. Meaning that, like, if you lie about something, it just turns into a
multiply.
worse lie. Yeah. Another one of my mentors said, bad news does not age like fine wine. It gets worse and worse if you don't share it. And so I'm a big believer in always just being 100% transparent and honest. If you don't know something, say you don't know it. If you messed up something, say you messed it up. Okay.
I feel like there are proper ways of wording that too, right? You could say, I don't know, and that's very flat, but you could also say, like, I don't know, but I'm going to look into this and get back to you, right? There's a difference in, in responses.
Yeah, you shouldn't be like, I don't know.
Yeah, good luck.
Go figure it out your freaking self.
Yeah.
Exactly. So you want a situation where you're doing it in a polite way, of course.
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't have the answer to that, but I'm gonna get together with one of the folks on our team. I'll get back to you within the next 12 hours. Like, great, cool. Yeah. Everybody's really patient with that. Or if you did mess something up, this is something that I say to all of our new hires. Hey, look, everyone's gonna make mistakes sometimes. Just raise your hand. If you made a mistake, it's much easier for us to understand, oh, okay, this was the mistake. Let's correct it. Hey, we're in the business of fixing things all the time. And so that's okay. But it's where somebody's like, no, I didn't do that. Yeah. And then you're like, all right. And that's harder than for a supervisor, because if the supervisor says, my employee told me this, I'm going to be a great supervisor and defend that person to the ends of the earth and be really, really like a great supporter. And then I find out that this person lied.
Did it. Yeah.
And so then that makes everybody look bad. So just that transparency, that honesty is something that everybody finds really, really refreshing.
Of course. How did you learn to get ahead? What did you do to get ahead at your job, and what are some of the mistakes you did while learning those?
For me, I really wanted to, I'm very, very driven to help others and to build things, like I mentioned. That's a quality I have, and it's a quality Slav Kulik, our CEO, shares. So, that's something that we both, very much embrace. And when I was young, I would do that to like the nth degree. And so some of the things that I did that I think impressed my old supervisors and bosses was to really go and kind of get to know a lot of people within the organization, and network with many of them and hang out with a lot of them and ask how I can help all the time. In addition to the normal tasks that I was getting from my supervisor, I would ask other people, can I help? And I would also suggest things that I thought my department or my group could do to work with these other departments. And so within often, just 6 months to 8 months, I'd be able to say to my supervisor, hey, you know what? I was having a conversation with Caroline and with Yvonne, and both of them were saying in these different departments, these were issues that our department can solve. What if we did this and this and this? And by the way, here's this plan that I created for how we could do this within a certain budget.
Mm-hmm.
My boss would be like, oh my God, dude, I didn't.
Yeah, why not?
Crazy. Literally no one has ever suggested this. And certainly no one has made like a plan to actually do this. And I was, I would just try to go like way above and beyond with things, and I had a consulting job where I was supposed to be a salesperson, or I wasn't supposed to be a salesperson. I was supposed to be a consultant. But as a consultant, I sold more than all the salespeople because I was constantly talking to our clients. Hey, by the way, you should always also try to buy this service and that service and the other things. And so the sales team was like, wow, this is crazy. Why aren't you in sales? And the consulting team was like, no, he's a great consultant. And so, you end up adding value to a lot of different places and connecting dots that other people aren't connecting. And that sort of is I think, an extension and an illustration of the example we talked about earlier, where you see trash on the ground and you pick it up.
We'll pick it up. Yeah.
Here's a problem that I can fix.
I think that's all the questions I had. Thank you for the wonderful conversation today.
Of course. Thanks for the great questions. And it's always a pleasure, Yusuf.
Yeah. All right. Take care.